The breeze picking up, and overnight there will be some rain creeping in initially to the Western Isles. Elsewhere, though, it stays dry. For England and Wales, it's all about the frost and the fog, turning cold quickly once the sun has set, and then the fog thickening up parts of the Midlands, southern England, South Wales. Could be quite dense for tomorrow morning's rush hour. It'll be cold as well, -2, -3, that's towns and cities, maybe -6 in some rural spots. +5 or 6 further north, though. A mild night for Scotland and Northern Ireland thanks to that blanket of cloud, making for a grey start in the morning. A little bit of rain across western Scotland, the west of Northern Ireland, but it's kind of fizzling out as it pushes southwards. Most of England and Wales again dry, probably a cloudier day for parts of northern England, but plenty of sunshine in the south once that fog has cleared, which may take most of the morning. 7 or 8 Celsius here. Further north could get 9 or 10, so actually slightly above average. In the afternoon, looking sunnier in the far northwest. As we go through the evening, that cloud will stick around across southern Scotland, Northern Ireland, perhaps pushing into northern England. Again, the odd spot of rain. Again, further south, frost and fog patches thickening up through the early hours of Wednesday morning, which on Wednesday morning, again, may take a while to clear. So it's a cold start, potentially a foggy start, but then generally a sunny day. Another band of rain then on Wednesday coming into the northwest later, and the winds really pick up. That's why we have a Met Office yellow warning. Those winds could cause some problems in the far northwest during Wednesday. Temperature-wise, again, single figures for most, about average for the time of year.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons? I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance.
Now we're here to represent you. Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's 6 o'clock. I'm Michelle Dewbs, and this is Dewbs & Co, the show where we'll get into some of the things that have got you talking now. Man's best friend, of course, the four-legged variety. Get this though, dog attacks are on the rise. You'll all remember that awful story of the little 4-year-old last week killed in her own back garden. Is the law toothless when it comes to dog attacks? Do we need to do more? For example, should we reintroduce dog licences? Did they make a blind bit of difference the last time we had them? And Liz Truss, she has been told to button it because she had the audacity, some are saying, to write a 4,000-word essay at the weekend explaining her perspective on what went wrong. Should former Prime Ministers butt out, or is it all insight that we so desperately need? And mega prisons, where do you stand on them? I frankly say that we should have more of them. Do you agree? And, you know, the world has gone mad, I say this frequently, but now we're being told that everyday phrases are now too violent to use in the workplace. I mean, give me a break, but I'll be telling you some of them. But you have to promise, if I say some of them, you don't basically go out and kill someone off the back of it. I think you can be trusted, don't you? We'll have all of that to come, but first up, let's get ourselves up to speed with tonight's latest headlines.
Michelle, thank you. Good evening to you. And we begin this bulletin with the very sad news that the number of people killed in the Turkey earthquake has now risen to 2,200. The 7.8 magnitude quake hit in the early hours of the morning in Turkey and Syria and was followed by dozens of aftershocks, including one that measured 7.5. The epicentre was near the border with Syria, causing widespread damage to homes and infrastructure. Thousands of people have been injured in both countries. And here, the Foreign Secretary James Cleverly says the UK government is sending help, which should arrive by this evening.
So we have deployed a large search and rescue team with state-of-the-art life-saving equipment. They will be deploying to Turkey very soon. We sadly have already seen many thousands of people die. We don't know the full extent of the injuries or fatalities, and sadly they're likely to grow over the coming days. At this stage, we are not aware of any British fatalities, but of course it's far too early for us to say that that won't be the case.
We're up to date on events in Turkey throughout the evening here on GB News. Now, in Scotland, a man has been jailed for killing a mother and her young daughter before burying them both under his kitchen floor. Andrew Innes was found guilty of murdering 25-year-old Benelin Burke and 2-year-old Jellica. The 52-year-old was also convicted of sexually abusing the toddler and raping another child at his home in Dundee in 2021. He was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term to serve of 36 years. The partner of missing woman Nicola Bulley says it's now been 10 days since Nicola went missing and I have 2 little girls who want their mummy back. Earlier, a private underwater rescue search team began helping the police in Lancashire search the River Wyre. Police believe the 45-year-old may have fallen in the river, but her family and friends have questioned that theory, saying there's no evidence to support it. Peter Faulding, who heads up the specialist diving firm SGI, says they're there to help the police.
Well, we've been tasked by Lancashire Police. We're working closely with them, so we're going to be coming down from the weir and we're going down towards the estuary. There's a fair stretch of river and we'll be looking at the bottom. I mean, it is deep in places, it's shallow in places. Police, I believe, think that she's in here and obviously that's where the evidence is actually pointing us at the moment. The police are doing a great job. It's a big task for Lancashire Police to do. This is a particularly long stretch of river to search and we just bring that backup resource to work closely with them at this instant.
And police searching for a missing 11-year-old girl in Scotland say they can't rule out foul play. Caitlin Eason was last seen yesterday afternoon at around 5:45 in the evening at the interchange in the town centre in Galashiels. Police say there has been another sighting 10 minutes later, but there's growing concern now for her welfare. In other news today, tens of thousands of nurses and ambulance staff in England are taking part in the biggest walkout in the history of the NHS. The Royal College of Nursing is staging 2 days of strikes in a dispute over pay. Ambulance crews and call handlers will return to work tomorrow, but will resume industrial action on Friday. The Health Secretary Steve Barclay says a resolution needs to come through the independent pay review body.
There's been ongoing pressures on the NHS. Inflation has been higher since last year's pay review body process than was originally forecast, for example, in the spending review 2021. And that's why we've got the evidence in terms of this April that we're working with the trade unions on that will reflect the inflation, reflect those circumstances, but it should be done through the independent pay review body process that can look at both what the NHS needs, but also the wider needs of the economy and the other pressures that many of your viewers are facing.
Well, the General Secretary of the Royal College of Nursing, Pat Cullen, says the government is punishing nurses.
Nurses deserve and need a decent pay rise. That will boost the economy, not damage the economy, because nurses spend in their local communities. So every NHS worker, including our nurses, deserve a decent pay rise. And here we are in a situation today where this government has chosen to punish the nurses of England instead of getting round a table and talking to me about pay in the same way as they've done in Wales and in Scotland.
A woman has been arrested on suspicion of attempted murder after 4 people, including 3 young children, were found seriously injured in Huddersfield. Police were called to an address in the south of the Yorkshire town early this morning after receiving a request for assistance from paramedics at the scene. Officers believe serious injuries were caused by a bladed weapon. All 4 injured people have been taken to hospital for treatment for their injuries. And the UK's shortest-serving Prime Minister has given her first interview since stepping down last year. Speaking to Spectator TV, Liz Truss explains the decision to sack her Chancellor, Kwasi Kwarteng.
It was very difficult. It was very difficult, and reversing the measures in the mini budget as well that we thought were right was very difficult.
The 2 of you didn't disagree on anything, did you? As far as I can work out.
No.
Yet he still had to go.
I can't say it was anything but extremely difficult, but he was in Washington at the time.
You're up to date on TV, online and DAB+ radio. You're with GB News. Back now to Dewbs & Co.
Thanks for that, Polly. Well, I am Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening. Keeping me company in the studio tonight, I've got Lord Daniel Moylan, Tory peer in the House of Lords, and alongside him, Kevin Craig, the former Labour councillor and the CEO of PLMR Communications. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, Michelle.
Nice to have you back. You know the drill as well, don't you, about Dewbs & Co? It's not just about us 3. It's very much about you guys at home tonight. What's on your mind? Get in touch with me the usual ways. gbviews@gbnews.uk is my email, or if Twitter's more your thing, you can tweet me at GBNews. Lots of you getting in contact already. A quick reminder, I want to talk to you about Liz Truss, mega prisons. Do you think we need more of them? I definitely do. Oliver, oh, you're in Hull actually, Ollie, good man. You've asked a question and I think it's quite a good one. You say, never mind prisons, Michelle, why don't we reintroduce the death penalty? Well, I'll put that to my panel a bit later on in the programme. Somebody who has asked to be kept anonymous says, I am a prison officer and the new mega prisons would be impossible to manage. They're short-staffed prisons currently, and the ones we already have are run by the prisoners. Let me ask you this, though. I won't use your name. You've asked to be kept anonymous. You're saying at the moment mega prisons won't work because staffing issues. Well, what about if we sorted out the staffing there? Would you be in favour of them then? And a little quick nod to what I would call one of my most dedicated viewers tonight, Richard, because he says, I am watching tonight from the Bayside in Singapore. You say you won't miss Dewbs & Co wherever you go. Richard, You are a man of style, and I like it. I like your style. I might make a note of you. You might get an award towards the end of the year as being one of my most dedicated viewers. Where else are you watching it from? Singapore, I have to say, it will take some beating. Right, let's talk dangerous dogs, shall we? Lots of you have been in touch about this one already. Some of you saying there's no such thing as a dangerous dog. There is just such thing as a dangerous, incompetent owner. Do you agree with that sentiment? The reason I've picked this one tonight is because, I mean, let's face it, we seem to be hearing so much more now about dog attacks, people being killed by dogs. You will have known, for example, a little 4-year-old very recently in her own back garden. You had the lady that was walking, I think it was 8 dogs that had all the bites to her neck. She very sadly died. And last year, to be clear, was the deadliest on record for dog attacks. 10 of them were recorded. Thousands upon thousands, about 9,000 of people end up in hospital because of dog attacks as well per year. Quick quiz for you, if you're watching at home, and don't Google the answer, because in a minute I'm going to ask my panel if it's time to bring back dog licences. But before I do, a question for you guys at home. Do you know how much the dog licence previously cost? Don't Google it, just off the top of your head, if you know the answer to that. I was astonished when I found out. Anyway, Kevin Craig, dangerous dogs. What do we do about them? Or dogs generally, actually? Should we have a licence for all dogs in this country?
Well, I'm going to admit something embarrassing, Michelle. Oh. We had a dog until I was 16. I'm 51 now. And when I found out recently that you didn't need a licence to have a dog, I was shocked, right? I was completely unaware. Do I think that licences, the specific issue here in these terrible attacks, none of the dogs were banned breeds, and it's unknown why they turned on the walker. So I'm not sure that licensing would solve the problem. But do I think that we should licence dog ownership? Yes, I do. I think it's a really big responsibility. I think it would be better for the country. It would encourage people to be responsible. And I'm not suggesting we go as far as the Netherlands. Guess how much for one dog in the Netherlands?
Well, I know the answer to that because I've got it in front of me.
Okay,
so if I do it, it'll spoil the question there.
What I didn't realise, 128 euros for one dog, 330 euros for 2, or 586 euros for 3 dogs, right? Mm. So it's done differently elsewhere. Now, not all
And they do a yearly tax, by the way, as well, on top of that.
On top of that, yes. Right. So in other countries, you know, it's done differently. I don't think licensing itself will stop the terrible attacks that have happened recently. But do I think we should have licences for dog ownership? I think it would be a very good consideration.
Do you agree, Lord Moylan?
I've always, in the last 30 years, kept out of arguments and debates about dogs because I've found, in local governments
Daniel, well, those days are about to change.
They are about to change, but I found that there are 2 types of people who are interested in debates about dogs. People who absolutely hate dogs and dog poo, and people who are completely bonkers in favour of dogs. Not necessarily dog poo, but in favour of dogs. And there's nobody in the middle. And whatever you say, you're going to be, watch out, Kevin, you are going to be monstered on Twitter tonight once people have heard what you have to say. But I do think that the old dog licence...
You can take it. He's got a thick skin.
The old dog licence, which when I was young cost, I think, 2 shillings and 6pence or something like that, Michelle. I don't know if that's the right answer you've got written
No,
down.
I want it in pence now. We've moved on from shillings. How many, pence is my question.
The old dog licence did no good whatsoever, and people... 40% apparently of people, only 40% of people who should have had a dog licence actually had one. Most people were like Kevin, criminals who weren't operated, didn't have a dog licence when he was a youth. He's just admitted it on television. And I hope that, like Rishi, the fine arrives very shortly just for admitting that. But never mind. The point is that that system did no good. What Kevin is suggesting, indicating, in the Dutch system, would have to be coupled with some sort of training, some sort of... for the owners. Yeah. And I can see the argument for that, but actually delivering it against the backlash that Kevin is now going to see evidence of on his Twitter feed tonight, and you might, is going to be almost impossible, because people will feel that they are responsible dog owners without the need for having to go on a government course. I personally, you ask my personal views, I think that in cities, at least, it is often quite cruel, and I don't understand why it is that people have dogs as pets.
Wow.
And I really wonder whether...
You're going to get monstered.
Yeah, they
And I will get monstered.
Stand back, my friend.
I will get monstered as well now. But I mean, a budgerigar I can about see. Goldfish, yes. But really, you know, do you need, in the city, if you're living in a flat, do you really need a dog? Is it good for the dog? Is it good for you?
Oh, I can hear the viewers at home. They're shouting at you.
Can I say one thing, Michelle? Daniel's. I think Daniel's the one who's... Because I like dogs, for the record, Daniel. But what I was really fascinated about was that without a licensing system, there's no insurance in place. So in terms of some of the consequences of attacks, what is interesting is recently some of the attacks, when the owners have been prosecuted, they've got no means to make up to the victims. A licensing scheme, responsibly done, sensitively done, would offer more redress to people who were the victims of attacks.
But can't you tie that into this
licensing
micro...
and insurance.
But yeah, can't you tie that into this microchip thing that all the dogs have got to have? Couldn't you put a form of insurance, mandatory insurance, on that?
You'd have thought if it was possible, it would have been done by now, and yet we don't know how many dogs there are in the country. Despite the microchipping requirement, as I understand it, nobody knows how many dogs there are in the UK.
Yeah, there's not a central database.
Yeah, which just seems surprising, I think.
But you know what would happen if you had to have compulsory insurance of dogs? I'm not saying it's a bad idea, but you know what would happen? The breeds would get ranked by the insurer according to how risky they were, and the premium for an Alsatian or whatever would be off the scale. So everybody would end up with Shih Tzus and poodles, and that's all you get, a monoculture of dog ownership. I mean, are you happy to live with that?
But don't you want to dissuade people from having the more dangerous types of dogs?
Well, that may be what you want to do, but what is the point of having a country which is just a country of Shih Tzu owners? You know.
I just think he wants to say that as many times as
I know, yeah, you're quite enjoying saying that.
No, I think it's an enjoyable topic. I wouldn't dissent to that.
Do you have a dog? What do you think to what Daniel's just said? Daniel's basically saying it's a little bit cruel if you live in a city to have a dog. I'm not putting words into your mouth there, am I?
Not unfairly, no.
You know, what do you think to that? I don't have a dog. I must confess, I'm a little bit frightened of dogs. I was brought up by my dad to be wary of dogs, to cross the road. Yeah. If we ever saw a dog, we would be made to cross the road. And I've had to do a lot of work on myself to even be around dogs. They used to... I mean, now I can be around a dog, but if a dog started to bark, I would be very, very, very frightened indeed, which is not great, but...
Well, it's understandable, given your experiences as a child. But, I mean, I think this debate has to also hear that millions of people are made incredibly happy by their dogs' mental health. In big cities up and down this fine nation, Daniel, I think you're going to find a lot of people who say, we've got parks, we clean up after our dogs, we're responsible. And I think they would...
And you'd put them on a training course, wouldn't you? That's what you'd say to them.
I just think
they ought to go on a training course.
Well, I think there's space for a discussion about...
And get insurance.
Well, I think there's a space for a discussion about licensing dog ownership, which is a really responsible thing. But I'm definitely not saying, casting aspersions on dog owners generally, because many are really responsible and get a lot of happiness.
I think you should. If you buy a dog, you should have to sign something or whatever to say that you've been on mandatory dog training. Because the problem is, and it's coming through thick and fast on my inbox, a lot of you are saying this. Let me just cut to some of you guys. Graham, if I can get you up on screen, I do like to give you your moments of glory, if I can make that happen. Yes, there you go, your moment of fame. Graham says, the thing is with dogs, they become a fashion accessory and a complete nuisance to the peace and quiet. Cool a lot. Goodness me. That's a bit harsh, Graham. My fellow viewers agree with that. David says it's nothing to do with licences or government intervention. Training and not treating dogs like children and humans is the answer. Jim, I'm not generally a fan of dogs, so yes, I think they should be licensed more strictly with an annual requirement of a vet check, like an MOT on a car. Goodness me, people that have got pets will say about the vet bills. David says prospective owners should be vetted as to the dog's well-being and all dogs should be licensed. An annual dog licence fee dependent on breed. Gloria says definitely bring back dog licences and introduce it with a tag to be worn on their collar when outside. Yeah, there you go. The suggestion is the owner, because I have to say many of you are saying that it's the owners. Bernard Let me get yours at Bernard if I can. Bernard says, I agree with the Lord. People get dogs today and leave them all day alone when their owner is out at work. And Peter, you say that all dogs should be kept on the lead when they are out. See, I have to say, I do think kind of you should be on a lead, certainly when you're kind of in close proximity, but I would be comfortable if there was big spaces that were fenced off, perhaps, for dogs to have free run around. I get a little bit uncomfortable when I see dogs charging all over the place when you've got little kids that are around. Anyway, keep your thoughts coming in. That has got lots of you guys talking. Are you someone that has a dog who lives in a city? Are you cruel? You tell me. Going to take a quick break. When we come back, I'll have some more of your thoughts, but also I want you to ponder. Oh, by the way, I forgot to give you the answer on the dog licence, so I'll give you that when you come back as well. But I want to talk about Liz Truss. She's written an essay over the weekend, obviously got a bit of time on her hands. Should she just butt out of everything and stop interfering or not? Give me your thoughts. I'll see you in 2.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you. Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewbs, keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock tonight. Alongside me, Lord Daniel Moylan, the Tory peer in the House of Lords, and Kevin Craig, the former Labour councillor and the CEO of PLMR Communications. Daniel is older than he's letting on, Michelle, because a dog licence was 7 and 6, says John. In real money, by the way, a dog licence, I asked you how much do you think they used to cost? 37 pence, some people are saying.
Yeah,
37.5 pence. There you go. Probably a lot of money in some of those olden days, I suspect. The sentiment coming from so many of you is that, it's not the dogs that are at fault. It is very much the owners. I've never heard so much rubbish in all my life, says Mick. I've got 4 dogs, 2 from a rescue centre, 2 small, 2 medium, and 1 a lab pit bull mix. I would never licence them or pay insurance. You sound like the Socialist Party wanting to run everyone's life. Shut up, says Mick. Flaw in the plan, though, Mick. If I did shut up, it'd be quite a boring hour because we'd just be sitting in silence, wouldn't we, for the next half an hour? What would we do then? I was asking where are you from, by the way, and I had a great message from, I'm just scrolling through, from Nicola. I'm sure it was Nicola. I just need to find it. I have so many emails coming in. You say that you're watching us in Canada. I love it. How far away are you guys? Nicola does say that she's from Harrogate originally, very posh indeed. But where are you watching or listening tonight? Get in touch, let me know your thoughts. Phil says, Michelle, are you going to be singing tonight, you and your panel? No, we're not. I don't think you'd be up for a sing-along, would you two?
No. Frog in my throat.
We were singing Delilah on Friday because there was plans for it to be banned in some of the rugby stadiums, and we decided we were not having any of that. So I whipped up the panel to do a sing-along with them, but I'm not up for it tonight. That is Friday activities only. Let's talk, shall we? Instead of my singing, let's focus on Liz Truss. She's getting a bit of a backlash, I have to say, because she wrote an essay, essentially 4,000 words, I think it was, over the weekend, which is giving things from her perspective. She was saying, basically, that she was stitched up by a left-wing economic establishment. I found the essay quite interesting.
Yeah,
I do recall as well, Lord Moylan, you voted for Liz Truss live on Dewbs and Co.
Live on Dewbs and Co.
Well done, Dan.
Yes. What did you make to what she had to say over the weekend?
Well, I think it's really interesting. Actually, if you listen to people, everyone who comments on it agrees that she was ousted by a left-wing economic establishment. Nobody disputes that. Some people think that was a good thing, and some people think it was a bad thing. But everyone agrees that the Prime Minister of this country and the Chancellor were effectively chucked out because the Treasury, the Bank of England, the useless OBR and people like that all disagreed with and felt cheesed off and cheeked. Some of them were angry with her because she cheeked them, basically, and hadn't spoken to them nicely and said rude things about, disobliging things about them, and that they got her out. Now, I think that's the most interesting thing in all of this, because whether you think her economic policies were right or wrong, what sort of constitutional arrangements do we have that a Prime Minister can actually be trashed within a few days by that bunch of unaccountable people? Now, whether her policies were right or wrong, I think there's a lot to be said for low taxes, there's a lot to be said for getting the country moving and for inspiring a vision of optimism and entrepreneurialism. And that isn't the Treasury orthodoxy. The Treasury orthodoxy believes, as far as I can tell, that the country is in decline and all we have to do is manage it. Well, I don't want that Treasury. I'd rather get rid of that Treasury and have a different one.
Yeah, agreed. And that is one of the things as well, because I read this whole thing and I did find it very interesting. But one of the things that she says is that there is such a doom and gloom attitude when it comes to the prospects of this country. Pessimism and scepticism about the growth potential of the British economy is sadly endemic at the Treasury, is one of the things that she was saying. What did you make to it all, Kevin?
Well, I'm hoping, Michelle, that given that one of your viewers, listeners tonight has called you a socialist and that you're wearing red, that we might agree with what I'm about to say, OK?
Stranger things have happened, Kevin.
Well, Liz Truss is wild, OK? Let's remember how we got here, and with due respect to the lovely member of the House of Lords on your right over there, it wasn't a left-wing coup that got rid of her. She was fired by her own members of Parliament who understood what a disaster she was overseeing for our country. And to keep it brief, Liz Truss decided, with Kwasi, to cut taxes for the wealthy in a cost of living crisis, to not talk to, which all governments, left and right wing, do, to talk to the Bank of England and the OBR. She sacked the Treasury Permanent Secretary before she had barely her feet in office, and she couldn't communicate and act like a Prime Minister. I mean, Liz Truss is not a victim here. She wasn't right for the job, and there are hundreds of thousands of us still living with the consequences of her thankfully brief reign.
You say about the forecast and stuff, she says, and I'm direct quoting here, it's also worth recalling that no OBR forecast has accompanied many other fiscal announcements, not least the COVID-19 furlough scheme, which cost $70 billion.
Well, we know it cost that number of billions because Liz's, the government that she was a key member of in cabinet, wasted billions of it, and we're going to see that come out in the public inquiry.
No, but she's on about why the double standards. What she's saying is, how come everyone was cool with huge policy announcements such as this 70-odd billion or whatever it was going to be for the furlough without an OBR forecast, but not her stuff?
Well, very specifically, announcements about how to deal with the pandemic are not the same as budgets and mini-budgets. It was very, very unusual compared to the past to try and do an announcement in that way. And I think many people think, given the reaction afterwards, it saw her unfit to do the job. And another thing she said, I wasn't aware, apologies for the technical, I wasn't aware of these things called liability-driven investments. Well, she was Chief Secretary at the Treasury for years. I mean, come on, Daniel, you must have some buyer's remorse now. You're a lovely guy.
No, the Chief Secretary is responsible for public expenditure, not for managing pension funds, which is what the Bank of England does. That's the job of the Chief Secretary, is to manage the public expenditure. I know something about the city and financial markets. I was totally taken aback by the LDI scams that the pension funds had got up to under the supervision of the useless Bank of England, and then to discover the Bank of England's own pension fund was up to its ears in the same sort of nonsense. And I had no idea that risk actually existed. I wasn't, and so I'm not surprised she didn't know. It had been kept very, very quiet, hadn't it? Did you know, Kevin? Did you know pension funds were managing themselves that way? I mean, maybe you did, but I think most people didn't.
I had a vague idea, but with all fairness to me, I'm not in the cabinet, and I wasn't Chief Secretary of the Treasury.
Fair enough. That's a fair point. It's a fair point.
On this, what she's saying is that neither she nor anyone in the team around her actually seemed to have any understanding of the situation about these pension funds or how bad it was potentially going to be. She says that she's gone off now and looked into it. And that she's absolutely shocked by it. She says the value of the total assets in LDI strategies is equivalent to around 60% of the UK's GDP. And it's only now, she says, she can appreciate what a delicate tinderbox we're dealing with in relation to these. And on that 45p, she references that as well, you know, the cut to the additional rate. And she says she was basically just returning it to the rate that it was at during the 97-2010 Labour government. But she acknowledges that the political sands had shifted. And I think that she does really stand by a lot of, if not all, of what she says. Some people are saying that this is Liz Truss circling because she wants to be back as a leader, that this is her laying the sands, if you like, to return as Prime Minister of this country one day.
I think all three of us, and I do not doubt the listeners and viewers, none of us think that that's going to happen. You know.
Do you think that might happen?
I think that she is leading the argument, and I think she has won the argument on what economic policy should be. I think that you asked me about buyer's regret. I think, to be frank, there are an awful lot of Conservatives and even Conservative MPs who, while they'll go along with the current economic policy and the current Chancellor's policy as an act of what they see as necessity, but they do actually believe that the vision described by Liz Truss economically and fiscally is the one that the Conservative Party should be adhering to. And even you, Kevin, must think that whether there was some irony involved in seeing Conservative MPs get rid of Liz Truss while demanding that the tax rate be put back to 45 pence. I mean, what was going on there? The Conservative Party appeared at that point seriously to have lost its way. In my view, they started to lose their way when they got rid of Boris. But, you know, it rolled on, and they ended up in completely the wrong place. I think they will get back to the right place. I think those are workable policies, and they are also going to be popular policies.
Wow.
Unlike the policies on tax that I expect to see from the dreary Sir Keir Starmer.
Well, let's put to one side the charismatic Keir Starmer you've just referred to. The thing I would just say is, if we're all honest, let's imagine we're down the pub tonight. Do we think that Liz Truss was right for the job of Prime Minister?
I think what she was is someone that had the kahunas to be different and to be bold. And I think, actually, if she was supported better, she could have made radical change in this country that, in the medium term, would have been perhaps the right thing. That would be my answer.
I'd say she had actually won the contest in the Conservative Party, and that must count for something as well. So the idea that the Conservative
from
MPs...
the members, not the MPs.
I understand.
Yeah.
Well, it was the members who made the choice. That was what the rules say, between the last two selected by the MPs. And if the MPs didn't like it, and they were determined to have somebody else anyway, and they got rid of her for that reason. That's a bad look too.
She makes quite an interesting barb, by the way, in this essay of hers, because she talks about being caught unawares at this upcoming leadership contest and having to create a campaign very quickly. That was obviously a bit of a barb, or at least I took it that way, for Rishi Sunak. Which, remember, his very slick campaign video that was produced apparently in a matter of days. Yeah, all right. Mickey says...
Didn't work though, did it?
Well, we are where we are. He is the Prime Minister now, isn't he?
He lost the contest.
This is very true. Mickey says, ex-PMs are like children, Michelle. They should be seen and not heard. Well, I hate to break it to you, Mickey. They're making an absolute fortune by being heard, aren't they, on the speaking circuit? John says, I knew the day she became PM that she was never going to be accepted by the rail power brokers who pull the strings. In fact, she'd be out before she even got in, Tony. Says, give me Liz Truss's policies any time. She was never given a chance to proceed with her high growth, low tax, small state agenda, thanks to the establishment and Tory MPs' coup against her. Gary says, I've read Liz's financial plan. You should read it and tell us what was wrong with it. Her only crime was not to take the Eton-Oxbridge crew along with her. Simon says, please can you ask Liz to stop embarrassing herself with her childish defence that it wasn't me, it was everyone else. She was a weak candidate that was voted in by party members. You know, so many people, I suspect, must sit there and think, why on earth did we ever get rid of Boris Johnson? Do you think, or not? And when I'm going to take a quick break, when I come back, look at this. Could this be the answer to Britain's overcrowded prisons? El Salvador's just finished a facility, a prison facility that, get this, will hold 40,000 inmates. I like it. I think we could do with one of those here. Do you agree? Give me your thoughts. I'll see you in 2.
He's the king of breakfast TV, and he's back.
Eamon Holmes, back on the TV with me this morning.
Even remember my name.
I know, it's been 4 months. You have holy water by your bed?
Oh, yes.
Oh,
already to bless.
Yeah. Oh, Eamon. Oh.
Why do you not believe anything I say?
Eamon Holmes back on GB News Breakfast at 6 a.m.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dewbs and Co.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like.
Absolutely.
On Dewbs and Co. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and this is Dewbs & Co, the show where we'll get into some of the things that have got you talking. Keeping me company in the studio right through till 7 o'clock tonight is my panel. Lord Daniel Moylan, the Tory peer in the House of Lords, and Kevin Craig, a former Labour councillor and the CEO of PLMR Communications. Lots of you guys getting in touch. I'm trying to hunt for my dedicated viewers that are far afield, shall we say. We've had Canada so far, now Linda as well. South Africa, she's watching from tonight. Originally, she says, from Coventry. Good evening to you. Avis has been in touch. I mean, I have to say, this dangerous dog one has really got you guys talking tonight. Sorry, I fail to see what difference the licence would make to the very rare attacks. And as for you, Michelle, just because you were conditioned to be afraid of dogs, you just basically don't see the very many benefits. That's not strictly true, actually. I understand that dogs bring great company for a lot of people. I also understand, however, that many people are frightened of dogs, me included. One of the most terrifying experiences of my life. I was in a national park in Cambodia and I was surrounded by a pack of dogs because I got a little bit off track and ended up at some retreat that they were trying to guard some temple. I can tell you how I made it out of that alive will be beyond me, and it did indeed leave me very frightened. Anyway, I'll tell you what does also leave me very frightened. The amount of people that are wandering these streets, criminals that shouldn't be, because often there's not enough capacity in prisons. People seem to have this mantra about let's rehabilitate all these prisoners and be nice and look after them and all that. I'm not really a fan of much of that. I'm much more a fan of tough justice, if you like, tough prisons. And I paid attention then, if you like, to what was going on in El Salvador. The government there is had enough, and they have just finished building a prison that can hold, get this, 40,000 people. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. Kevin, do you think we need a similar thing here?
No, and I was struck, Michelle, by the prison officer who wanted to stay anonymous, who got in touch earlier, who said that, I think he also said that he didn't think large-scale prisons like this would be a good idea. I mean...
But hang on, he only said because of staffing. So if you just tuned in and you think that he didn't like it, he's saying that it wouldn't work because of staffing levels. So staff them properly then.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I still think that on that scale, I'm not sure. I mean, I think there are two reasons for prison. One is punishment, and the other should be rehabilitation. And
which one's the most important?
Well, punishment is the most important, but prison that does not seek to... I mean, who wants to be in prison? Like, if you were making sensible choices in life, nobody would commit crime, OK?
I would dispute that in this cost of living crisis. I think there's a lot of people that are struggling in life, quite frankly, and would see actually a couple of months in a low-category prison takes the stress away from me about my bills, my food. I can go to the gym every day. I think a few people wouldn't think it was a bad choice.
Can I ask, have you been into many prisons?
I have indeed. It was my teenage years. I had the misfortune of being involved in a romantic relationship with a man that was in and out of prison more times than a yo-yo. Okay. As a result, I spent pretty much every weekend of mine waiting for a visiting order to go and visit him in prison. So, yes.
So from that time, did you ever get the sense that there were people who actively took a break from life by doing some time inside?
Yeah, him. Probably because I was his girlfriend and he wanted to get away from me, quite frankly. But yeah,
right.
Him. He loved it. His friends was in that prison. He used to come out muscly. He had no problem going back in and out of there.
OK. Well, that is the point of a good debate, because I find that really interesting. My take on it would be, having also visited people in prison over time, is that you would at all costs not want to be there. I think, but I do respect what you've just said, you know, we have lost over 10,000 prison places since 2010. OK, that is an answer that has come out in Parliament. Daniel's old friend and still friend Boris, he made a big pledge, I think we might recall, to build. I think we might remember this, talking about more prison places. It hasn't quite happened. And I think more urgently, we need to get more prison places, but not on this scale. I fear something of that scale, which is from Central America, would be a disaster.
Do you? A disaster, he says. Mega prisons. I think it sounds like a great idea. Do you think it's a disaster or a good idea?
Well, you're going to think me a terrible old lefty on this, Michelle. I think the trouble is that we don't need more prison places, because what we actually need is to consider what the point is of ever longer sentences. And we've gone in this country, in my lifetime, from somewhere where a sentence of 10 or 15 years was a serious sentence for a crime of violence like GBH and whatever, to now where people are getting 29, 20 years, 25 years, 30 years, and there are people demanding it's even more. And if you want to go down the American route...
halfway through.
If you want to go... It is true that people are let out after halfway through on licence. You could get rid of that, but that's just another way of making sentences longer. If you want to go down the American route, where they routinely, as far as I can tell, hand out sentences of 99 years or 150 years on people, which I think is, what do they mean by that? You know, if you want to go down that and have a truly US justice system with all the sheer human madness of the prison system in the United States, then say so. But the fact is, we have to learn to live with the fact that we release people from prison constantly who have committed crimes of violence because they have served their sentence. All right, they let out some of them at the halfway point, but we let them out, and we need to manage that risk in the community. And if the implications of what you're saying is that someone who commits a violent crime, the public will always have to be protected from them forever, then lock them all up forever.
No, I don't
and then you'll have to build the prisons like that. But what have you achieved by it?
I don't think everyone needs to be locked up forever. But what I think is there's an awful lot of people that should be locked up in the first place that are not because of things like capacity.
Well, the story we've got here is about a guy who was violent, I grant you.
Yes.
No, the story was violent. But the sentence imposed on him by the court was 18 weeks. I mean, it's not like... And he'd have been out in 9. And now, it's true, and then they said, well, I'm suspending it because there's no room in the prison. Yeah. So he'd have been jailed for 9 weeks, fine, but he'd still then be out on the street. What are you protecting yourself from?
Well,
that's how serious his crime was, though, that he got 18 weeks. Not the most serious sentence going.
I want prisons, essentially, to be like hell on earth. I want someone to go to prison and have such an awful time that they would never want to reoffend in the first place. Let me read you out this thing. It turned my stomach, so it did. This is from a paedophile called Michael Thurman, I think that's how you say it. An 80-year-old man given 7 years for sex attacks on a 5-year-old girl. You did hear me right. This is an 80-year-old that's given 7 years in prison for sex attacks, I repeat, on a 5-year-old girl. Listen to what he wrote about his prison. I am grateful to be transferred here. This is HMP 5 Wells in Wellingborough. I'm grateful to be transferred here. The cells have ample room, but they're slightly lacking in shelves. At least I'm in a prison where, as a form of respect, the guards use our Christian names and have told us theirs. He goes on and says that he wants to thank the governor for the chance to be in conditions far better than my previous prison, which contained a large number of vermin, rats, spiders and silverfish in the cells. I have to say, despite small problems, HMP 5 Wells is a 5-star establishment. I have to be honest, that sickens me. I do not want an 80-year-old man that has sexual relations with a 5-year-old girl to be celebrating the fact that he is in a 5-star establishment, his words, not mine, where inmates are called residents, and you have this wonderful setup in order to rehabilitate you. I don't want that. I want it to be really hard, really harsh, and people will think twice about ever committing a crime.
Yeah, I mean, that's I can see that's a very upsetting and aggravating email or message to read out. I can understand. I share your views on that. I go back to the bigger point, though, and you know, the sentences have to be appropriate. We don't have enough prison places, and also people go to prison for some things, and yet you have this sentencing that Daniel's just alluded to, where someone hits somebody else. You can kill someone with one punch, right?
You can.
You know, you need to go to prison for that, and you need to be punished, and then you need to be rehabilitated. So that
there's no rehabilitation seriously attempted in prisons. I think that's a canard. You may think you want to see it, but it doesn't effectively happen.
Well, it's a stated intent of the prison service, isn't it?
Well, this is a debate that can rumble on and on, not least, by the way, because I didn't even get round to asking about the death penalty. Is that one of the solutions to overcapacity prisons? So guess what? I'll save that one for another day. Coming up after this break, I'll have lots of your responses on that prison one, because that has got you talking, I can tell you. But apparently now there's this whole list of phrases and words that we need to stop using with a lot of softer alternatives. I mean, come on now. You shouldn't even be able to say deadline, apparently. Really? Well, I'm on a deadline, so I'll go to a break now and I'll see you in a couple of minutes.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me. So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion, and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, welcome back to Dewbs & Co with me, Michelle Dewberry. I'm keeping you company until 7 o'clock tonight. Alongside me, Lord Daniel Moylan, the Tory peer in the House of Lords, and Kevin Craig, the former Labour councillor and the CEO of PLMR Communications. We were just talking about prisons. I'm saying that they should be much harder, much harsher than they currently are. Jim, I think you, my friend, proved my point. You said I spent 5 months in Winston Green in Birmingham. And if I'm reading that right, I think you mean the prison, the Category B prison. You describe it as a holiday camp, the best 5 months of your life. I mean, I find that a shame for a few different reasons, but I also think that you make my point. John emails in and says, Michelle, I'm 81. Oh, sorry, John, you was on the screen and now you're not. John says, I'm 80. I shouldn't laugh, and I hope you're not serious, John, but you say I'm 81 and I'm thinking of committing a crime so I can get free food, free en-suite accommodation, free TV, no council tax, and psychological support. Terry says all prisoners should be made to work, picking crops and litter picking. If they don't work, then their sentences should be extended. I'm quite harsh though, me, Terry, because what I would do, you know, the community service and stuff, I would make everyone have high-vis jackets on with criminal on the back of them. And for these kind of reasons, it's probably a good idea that I'm not in charge of this country. What can I say? Anita's been in touch saying that you're watching from Spain in your motorhome. I like it. I do love a motorhome. You say you watch the show every night with a nice glass of Spanish wine. I like it. I like your style. Right. Shall I give you some things that are so controversial that you cannot say anymore? Are you ready? Now, you have to promise, because I've got my list in my hand, you have to promise if I say these things, you're not going to basically go out and commit crime or anything off the back of it. Now, instead of saying we're going to pull the trigger, you know, we'll pull the trigger on this, you've got to say we're going to launch. Did we jump the gun? No, you can't say that anymore. Did we start too soon? I'll bite the bullet. Nope. I won't avoid it any longer. And that'll kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Now, it's suggested we say that'll feed 2 birds with 1 stone instead.
No, scone.
Oh, no, stone. Did you say scone?
I did. Is that not
who calls them scones? Scones.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
So it's 2 birds with 1 scone, anyway, is the point.
Yeah, kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Yeah, apparently now we'll feed 2 birds with 1 stone. I mean, who even takes this stuff seriously? Do you, Lord Moylan?
I take it very seriously, actually. Not because I want to do it. I take it very seriously. All this goes back, and it's a poison in our current society and culture. It goes back to a mad Frenchman about 40 years ago who persuaded everybody that real things didn't exist. The only things that existed were words. And the words had a reality which you could only understand the reality through the words. The words were important. It's called deconstructivism. And it spread through all our universities. And these people think that the way to control society is to control the language we speak, because the words have a reality which is more important than the underlying what I'd regard as the underlying substance. And this comes out all the time. Constant attempts to control your enemies, what they see as their enemies, which is right-thinking people like us, like you and me, Michelle, to control them by forbidding us from using different types of language. It's much more serious than just a sort of joke in the office. This is serious stuff, Michelle.
Indeed, and it does not wash with me. I can tell you I won't be changing my wording, Kevin.
This is not serious stuff, I would contend. This is a deluded, niche American PR professional, somebody in my profession.
Your industry, yeah,
indeed,
you're to blame.
who's really a stain on our industry's reputation. And, makes no sense at all, because normal people just won't get it. You just can't speak like this.
I'll tell you what you can't speak like much longer, because time flies when you are having fun. I can't say deadline, because apparently that offends people, but I'll say it. I'm on a deadline, so I do need to go. Thank you very much, gents, for your company tonight. I want to just bring in some thoughts from the viewers before I leave you. Verdi says, Michelle, when we're talking about criminals, why don't we have chain gangs filling the potholes in this country? Would you support that, Lord Moylan?
Well, I think no. I mean, the great problem is, of course, the moment you put them in the fields, they'll run away, Michelle, and that just puts your staffing costs right up. And
Cyril,
those chains don't work all the time.
Cyril says, why don't you just shove these people into the army? Well, if anyone's in the army, you're probably going to shout at your screen. You probably don't want these kind of unruly criminals running amok in the army, do you? And you mentioned deconstructing language. Has anyone seen those posh restaurants where they serve things like deconstructed apple pie, charge a fortune for it? It's basically just a pile of ingredients on a plate. It doesn't work for me. Lots of you guys getting in touch. It's good to see you out there have a little bit of common sense, because you do seem to agree with me in the whole when it comes to prisons being places for punishment, toughness that you would never want to return to again. But I do hope you return to me again tomorrow. Have a good evening, and I'll see you at 7 tomorrow.
Evening, Alex Deacon here with your latest weather update. Temperatures are dropping out there across England and Wales. A frosty start tomorrow morning. Some fog also likely. Further north, frost and fog not such a problem because it is going to be cloudier. This big area of high pressure has been dominating our weather, but it's just edging away to the east, allowing this weather front to come into the northwest, bringing outbreaks of rain across the Western Isles through this evening, and also the breeze picking up here. That's wetter weather. We'll